right, if you guys please give a warm welcome to our next guest from the Journal-Record, Catherine Sweeney.
This is starting to feel like a real late show, Scott.
I know, right? Right.
A dress rehearsal would have been beneficial to all of us.
Yeah, that's true. We had about 6 hours left today than we planned on, I think.
That's right.
All right, Catherine, welcome. Thank you for coming. We really appreciate you being here. So, Catherine, you cover politics in the Capitol, right, for the Journal-Record.
I like to say I cover government.
You cover government, all right?
Yeah.
Fair enough.
So policy is like nerdy, and that's me.
Okay.
Politics is for like the cool people, but I cover that too, just disgruntledly.
Very
Policy
cool.
is the important part.
Yeah.
That's the part that matters.
Oh, for sure.
Right. You know, you are super active on Twitter. This is like, I feel like I say on our show all the time, like, if you don't follow Catherine Sweeney on Twitter, you're doing Twitter wrong. So everyone needs to follow Catherine if you want to know. One, if you want to know what's happening at the Capitol, and two, if you just want a really entertaining Twitter follow. How do you feel like Twitter, like as a medium and social media generally, how has that changed what you do as a journalist who covers government?
So at my first job, I covered city and county government, and Twitter wasn't really a big part of it. Twitter really became a part of what I used as a journalist when I was just in committee hearings at the Capitol and was anxious and wanted to like mess with my phone. And then I just was like, I should probably be productive, so I started live tweeting and stuff. But I was really shocked and surprised at like how engaged everybody was.
We don't know.
People just asked like a ton of questions, and there was just so much interaction with people, and especially during big things, right? Like there was that big health department scandal, and everyone wanted to know what was going on. Hey, are you going to cover this? Are you going to be there for that? And the walkout, like that exploded, you know? And I think that I got really lucky about when I got there and when I started using Twitter. It all just kind of culminated in a really like fortunate way. Yeah.
Well, and I know that the Journal-Record, most of the articles are behind a paywall, and not everyone's able to afford accessing those.
Yeah.
I've seen you make a few comments that this is kind of a way to help it be more accessible.
Right. A little, introduce a little more equity and access. We've started putting, shameless plug, we've started putting all of our public service stories in front of the paywall, so you can go to journalrecord.com and read them for free. That's a move that I was really happy that we did, but before we had this hard paywall, and I think that everybody is entitled to know how their government is affecting them and how they're having their tax dollars spent, and so I'd be like, hey, they're using all these jargony, confusing words, here's what they really mean, and here's this thing that sounds really boring and dry, but here's why it's actually really cool, and you guys should pay attention to it. I think that we like to keep things boring sometimes because that's easy, right? Just, oh yeah, a riff, we're doing a riff. And it's easy to not say, we're laying off 200 people and people should probably care that we're laying off 200 people. So yeah, just translating is probably my favorite part of my job.
Sure. Very cool. Very cool. So you are originally from Oklahoma, is that right?
I am. I'm an Okie from Muskogee.
Okay. But you have lived and worked in government journalism in other places, right?
I have, yeah, over in Colorado for a while.
Okay.
Now, is that, I don't want to jump in, but is that where I've seen videos of you reading the news or reading police reports?
So we did this thing, it was called Action Line, and we would have people write in with questions, and they could be about anything. I mean, they could be about, is it legal to shoot squirrels with my gun in my backyard? Or like, what's going on with them watering the parks? I mean, all these things.
Right.
And then we would answer them. So it was a good way for us to like build rapport, but then we started turning that into videos.
Right. So really it was like next door.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
It was a rib shot, right?
Right.
So in terms of kind of politics and government, how weird is Oklahoma compared to everywhere else?
I feel like everybody likes to feel like their home is the weirdest, right? Like everyone's like, if you don't like the weather, stay around another week. But like everyone has fall like that. Like everybody likes to think that their spring is special, but it's not.
It's not.
So like Oklahoma has some weird stuff, but like the Georgia election right now with like the Secretary of State running for governor and like controlling the election, and of course Alaska is crazy right now. And all these states.
Florida, Texas.
Yeah, Texas is wild. Florida's wild. All these states that have like Indian reservations that are like not granting access to those people.
Right.
It's
Huge
all
issue
wild.
in North Dakota, right? Like
Yeah.
that's a big issue in North Dakota.
Yeah, and Utah's crazy, right? Their issues are just nuts. So I think that if you want to be entertained by government coverage, you just have to have an open mind and an open eye. But Oklahoma is, I think, is pretty weird. Yeah.
Well, and for someone who is in the Capitol most of the time, how do you draw the line between this is humorous and funny and kind of ridiculous and, oh gosh, this could really ruin our state?
Well, I think that just about anything you can like look at that one way or another. Like it could easily go either way. And so like I think for me personally, I have to look at all these serious things like they're funny to my private life because otherwise I'll just go crazy.
Right.
So yeah, like making jokes is like the only coping mechanism you've got up there. That and like Cheetos from the vending machine. But when it comes to like covering it, it's a little like you have to look at the news values that you learn in college, right? So like scope, how many people will it affect, and what kind of impact will it have, stuff like that. And that's kind of what I use to decide whether it's like, LOL, we're trying to get rid of daylight savings time, or like, oh, we're like trying to put this thing in place where like 2,000 people lose their health care, right?
Right. Yeah.
Well, so as people are kind of hopefully being more engaged and trying to stay more informed, what are the best resources that like you would recommend to, the everyday voter, the everyday person who's like, man, I want to better know what's happening at the Capitol?
So obviously I'm going to like shamelessly plug my own Twitter, right?
Sure.
But also everybody else's. The whole press corps in the Capitol, they're really open to questions and like story recommendations, and they kind of tweet just, here's what's actually going on today. And you kind of get this like daily look, right? Instead of this big picture, here's a story about what's been going on for the past 6 months. It's like, here's what we actually talked about today.
Sure.
And I think that's really cool. And then there are a lot of like officials and experts and analysts who are all also on Twitter. And so getting those perspectives from them, I think, is really helpful. And also, Nico Gomez, the former Oklahoma Healthcare Authority director, is on Twitter. So if you have a Medicaid policy question, he'll answer it. Or, you have AARP on Twitter, or you have all these different people, trade groups for marijuana. And they're like responsive, and it's a really easy way to learn if you're curious.
Yeah. And I would just say too, and this is just my own thought from kind of, stalking the Twitter feeds every day. I think we have an absolutely incredible Capitol press corps in Oklahoma. Right there's, give it a big hand for like all the journalists that camp out at 23rd and Lincoln every day and let the rest of us know what's going on. Coverage literally starts. I guess Sean puts his first post at
about 6:30 in the morning, yeah.
Oh, it's before that.
Oh, maybe
it's
like
5:15.
Yeah.
There's the joke that Sean crawls out from under his cupboard beneath the stairs and starts posting about the Capitol at 5:15 in the morning. And you will, if you're following the Capitol journalists, you will never not know. You'll know everything that they know. If they don't know what's happening, you probably won't know either. But
I feel like I have to also say you should subscribe to your local paper. And there's a lot of stuff in our newspaper that I don't put on Twitter that is deeper and writing that's just way more in depth and longer. You have character limits on Twitter. I can't write 2,000 words on how this public safety measure will affect low-income families in eastern Oklahoma on Twitter. So there's just a lot more depth there. But just for a quick here's what's going on, here's what's going on, Twitter is definitely the way to go.
That's right.
Awesome.
Well, and that's a great segue, Catherine. Because local papers cover local sports, and that's one of the most important things in Oklahoma. And so we wanted to ask you, it's a bit of a quiz, and I didn't give you the heads up on this.
I was on the debate team, so you guys really need
excellent.
to temper your expectations on my sports knowledge.
So I have a list of high schools and their mascots, some of which are real, some of which are not.
I'm not going to do well. Go ahead.
We have some bizarre high school mascots in Oklahoma. So, which one is real? The Claremore Zebras or the Pink Pirates?
I feel like Claremore Zebras isn't right.
Claremore Zebras is right.
No.
All right, between the Caddo Catfish or the Eufaula Ironheads?
I want the alliterated one to be right.
Right.
Is it?
The Caddo catfish, no, I made that up. Because I used to fish for catfish
That's right.
in
Okay.
Caddo Lake in Texas. All right, how about the this one you should know, the Muskogee Ruffers or the Yukon Flower Power?
The Ruffers are
Ruffers
real.
are indeed.
Can I tell you how that came to be?
Yeah, please.
So Muskogee had 2 high schools. They were consolidated because we had like a really racist setup, right? So Muskogee High School is 40% white, 40% black, and for like decades we were like, different schools. We don't care about brown versus who cares about the Supreme Court? But then one day, I don't know who was like, you guys have to like not be racist anymore. So
Integrate, I think it's what it's called.
Yeah, they had to integrate. So we had two mascots, and one was the Bulldogs, and one was the Roughnecks. And so the Roughnecks was, a dude on an oil rig.
Right.
The Bulldogs was, of course, a bulldog. So when they consolidated these schools, integrated, we ended up with the Ruffer, which is a bulldog with a huge wrench and a hard hat that works on an oil rig.
A bulldog who drills for oil.
Yes, that's what a Ruffer is.
Well done, Muskogee.
And they brag about how they're the only Ruffers in the country, and I'm like, yeah.
Fair enough.
That's, of course you are.
What about the Newcastle Racers or the Tecumseh Tigers?
Again, I just hope the alliterated one is it.
That's what I was going for. I thought you might pick those. That's incorrect.
Great.
Tecumseh is actually the Savages, which goes back to
Not great.
racism.
Yeah.
What about the Verdon Varmints or the Okeen Whippets?
I'm picking up on a pattern.
I'm
The alliteration is not
yes,
real.
I see a fly in my plan.
Yeah.
So you go with the Okeen Whippets
Yeah.
then? Indeed it is. I don't know if that refers to drugs or dogs.
Drugs, I thought it Whippets.
Whippets are
you know
both,
what? I'm not
right?
going to
I don't
admit that I know what a
I don't
Whippet
hang
is.
around with either one. I'm not sure, but good job on that one. 4 more. The Atoka Wampus Cats or the Medford Militia.
Militia?
Militia.
I want that to be real because that's dope.
That sounds like an Oklahoma potential.
Yeah.
But
But
it's
is it
not.
wrong?
No, the Atoka Wampus Cats.
Everybody needs to update their teams to what's on here.
Do you know
because
what the
I think they're
what a
better.
Wampus Cat is?
I don't.
I don't either. Does anyone? Bo, do you know what a Wampus Cat is? No one knows. It's a mystery to all of us. What about the Alva Gold Bugs or the Minko Gold Bugs?
I'm not going to guess. Andy.
Someone is gold bugs. That's the key here.
That's too much for me.
Too much. Catherine has lost interest in my game, Scott.
I'm not good at being bad
It
at
is
things
the
in
Alva
public.
ones.
If it's not alliterative, she doesn't care.
The next 2 are 2 of my favorite. I'll save them for the end.
Okay.
The Woodward Rangers or the Enid Plainsmen.
The second one can't be real.
And you would think that, and yet it
the
definitely
Plainsmen,
is.
that's 100%.
Plainsmen. The women are something else, though. There's not Plains women.
Yeah.
Only men. And I'm sure they are quite plain. And then, we have anyone here from Enid?
Enid in the house tonight?
Any Plains people? No one.
No?
They're all very plain. All right, the last one, the Kingfisher Fishers or the Beaver Dusters.
Both sound fake this
Right,
time.
they do sound fake.
Sure, I'll go with Kingfisher Fisher.
Oh, you just didn't want to say Beaver Dusters out loud. That's the correct one, Beaver Dusters. Excellent. Catherine, thank you so much for being here. We
Thank
really
you for
appreciate it.
having me.
Catherine Sweeney, everybody.